This is TWiT.
Andy put this one in from the New Yorker. He says, a somewhat snooty take on Apple Classical in the New Yorker this week. Apple again fails to save classical music. You said this. You should be Fraser Crane or maybe Niles, even worse, should be.
Yeah,
should be reading this. It's actually Alex Ross, who's one of their reviewers. What does Alex find at fault?
He basically feels as though streaming is already an environmental disaster. That's
costs, weird. Yeah,
that's exactly, which is bad. He feels as though on the apps, music is atomized into bits, stripped of biography, history, and iconography. Even from a predatory capitalist standpoint, streaming makes little sense. Spotify has yet to turn a profit, despite generating more than $12 billion of revenue. All the same, the magical ability to summon millions of songs and symphony in the palm of one's hand has proved irresistible. The seduction of convenience wears down ethical resistance.
We like Apple. Well, we loved Primephonic, which Apple put out of business, and then 18 months later came up with Apple Classical. Is it as good as Primephonic, Andy?
I'd say so. And it's hard to remember because remember they shut down Primephonic soon after they bought it. I mean, it's definitely an improvement, a needed improvement for a type of music that isn't well served by a conventional streaming app. It's not so much the service, so much as the app that expects everything to be really categorized very neatly and very cleanly with a very small number of tags associated with it. Whereas with classical music, you start off with the problem that if you try to stick a track from a classical recording into the same display user interface that was designed for pop music, congratulations, a lot of the track information is organized as, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, Le Nozze de Figaro, directed by blah 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 blah, and then you get to the name of the actual song, and so the aria is pretty much over with by the time the actual name of the piece of music you're actually seeing actually scrolls into view. To say nothing of the fact that there are lots of different entry points that people are looking for. So my particular knowledge is opera and using these apps, and sometimes I want to hear specifically Joyce DiDonato, but the problem is that if I ask for everything by Joyce DiDonato, I only get like the handful of albums that she's recorded strictly as a solo artist. Even when she's done a program with Il Pomodoro d'Oro, it's like, okay, well, no, that's you asked me for Joyce DiDonato. You can't blame me for not finding Joyce DiDonato with Il Pomodoro d'Oro. Is it listed as the creator is the creator listed as as the conductor? Is it listed as the symphony orchestra? It's kind of a mess. And so just simply having a different app that acknowledges that, okay, the queries for people trying to find things are going to be different. The interface is going to have to be a little bit different. And also for people who are not into classical, it takes a long, long time to find that entry point. It's like jazz in that sense, where like, I heard a piece of jazz music just like, on the radio or whatever. I don't listen to much jazz. Where's my entry point here? You need people who can write essays and can write playlists that will figure out, hey, here's what, if you're interested in opera, if the winner of America's Got Talent singing a slightly ropey version of Nessun Dorma got you interested in opera, here is like 10 tracks that will get you kind of interested in exactly what this stuff can do. So I think it's very, very good. I flag this because I just thought the attitude of someone who, if most of the people who are writing essays, not even reviews about streaming music services, get into very, very practical and tactile sort of things with it. Like, oh, well, unfortunately, it makes it really hard to find this album. It automatically, I can add things to my queue, but as soon as I switch to a new album, I lose that queue. He just seemed to have a philosophical, I can't put myself in the unisex crocs of a young person exploring classical music for the first time, but Apple Classical strikes me as an oddly clumsy point of entry.
He actually wrote that. I can't put myself in the unisex crocs of a young person? Alex, please.
I don't recall him putting the phrase avocado toast anywhere in here, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was in one of the earlier drafts.
Yeah. Hey, we're just glad we have it.
is adorned with dour, sickly portraits that, according to Apple, were, quote, commissioned from a diverse group of artists, unquote. I envisioned a studio of talented girls and boys at an orphanage in rural Romania. Like, what the hell?
What is this?
What? Now you bring Romania into this? There are talented boys and girls in Romania, I promise you.
Are you sure this wasn't written by Andy Borowitz? This sounds like a parody.
Again, you look at the address bar of the browser and say, nope, it's not The Onion.
No. Wow. He does mention a competitor called Idagio, which is a German company. Have you tried Idagio?
No, because I was pretty much waiting for Apple Classical, and it kind of did the trick for me.
Yeah, I mean, this is not cheap. $200 a year for the premium plus concerts. They do lossless quality. They do FLAC, which is nice.
Yeah,
of CDs.
I mean, there's an opportunity there for people who are interested in like live streaming or getting access to past live streams of like really great performances. I used to subscribe to the Metropolitan Opera has their own streaming service where almost everything that's ever been like live at Lincoln Center on the old PBS show or recorded for their modern like live in HD theater productions is now streamable. So if you've heard me like saying nice things about again Joyce DiDonato and Renee Fleming oh God, was it? They're in a sorry, I can never locate a word when I absolutely need it. I'm sorry. But yeah, they had a premiere opera last year that was really the highlight of the season for me. And if you're interested in that, then you can go to their streaming service and actually rent it or actually use it. That's nice. But you'd have to be really, really particular, I think, to know that I want specifically this 2-hour concert program from the Opera Festival in Bayreuth from 3 years ago. Say, okay, we can do that for you. It'll cost you $200 a year, and fine. If that's what you want, that's fine. But I think that Apple Classical does a really, really good job for what it needs to do. Yeah,
and I think it's going to win. He does
The Hours. I'm sorry. The name of the opera is The Hours.
The Hours. Yeah, darn convenience. It's ruined everything. but he's. I mean, there really is a reason to say, well, I'm already subscribing to Apple Music, and I get Apple Classical with it. Is actually probably all it takes to make this a hit. Is Apple Music, Spotify's still number one, and Spotify has no classic. It has classical tracks, but it really has no real support for classical. And then Apple is right after Spotify.
Spotify has double the market of number 2 and number 3, which are pretty much equal. Which is Apple Music, and I can't remember whether the third one is YouTube
or Pandora or YouTube.
I think it's an Asian streaming service. I'd have to remind myself, but I do remember that Spotify is still somewhere in the like 40%, whereas Apple Music is hovering in the high teens, and their next competitor is somewhere like 1 percentage point under that.
Yeah,
if my memory serves.
This episode of Tech Break brought to you by ACI Learning. 87% of companies have skill gaps. Secure your business with ACI Learning's Insights, the new skills gap analysis tool that revolutionizes how businesses train and engage employees. Try it for yourself, then bring your team along. Fill out the form at go.acilearning.com/twit for a free 2-week trial.